guys, it's Kaz here, and today it's really fucking warm, but also I'm doing my June wrap up finally. It's already a third of the way into this month and I haven't even done my wrap up, so let's get into it and I can talk about all the books I read in June. So the first thing I read in June was All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson. This one was for the Buzzwordathon because the prompt was all books with all in the title. And yeah, I did think this was a really good book. I thought it was super quick and easy to read. The writing wasn't lyrical or fancy, which some people love that sort of thing, but I just thought it was good because it was right to the point. It was saying exactly what it wanted to say. Nothing could go over anybody's heads when they're reading this. It's just like, these are the things that happened to me. These are things that exist for a black person, for a queer person, for intersectionality between those two things. And I just think it was a really good read. Fast, easy to digest, and good. So yeah, this is part memoir, part sort of exploring racism, homophobia, and that within sharing aspects of actual life. So, I mean, I'm making it sound more complicated than it actually is. They're talking about the real life, but also opening up that to a wider, and this is the sort of racism, and this is the sort of homophobia, and these are the things that happen. Issues. So yeah, it was a good book. After that I read Nate Plus One by Kevin Van Wy. This one follows Nate, and there's sort of two main aspects of the story. One aspect is this battle of the bands that's coming up, and one of his best friends, who he also has a crush on, is in a band, and one of the members of the band quits like a few weeks before, and he offers to take the place. And then on the flip side, this friend of his, Jai, has also said that he will come with him, with Nate, to South Africa to a wedding as his plus one, because he finds out that his ex-boyfriend is going to be there and he wants somebody to be with him. And yeah, I enjoyed this book. It was very short, it was very quick to read. I liked both sides of the things. I liked the music side of the things, I liked the wedding side of the things. His family in South Africa is very rich and affluent, like some of them are married into there, but it's also the first time he's ever met his grandma in person, his dad's mother. His dad died when he was really young and he never got to go and experience how his dad lived before he came over to America. So we've got that sort of aspect, and it talks about apartheid as well because his dad grew up in that. And yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought the romance was quite nice. I enjoyed the music stuff. There was a bit of angst because there's always angst. Bit dramatic, but I enjoyed it. After that I read Only on the Weekends by Dean Atta. Now this, as an opposite to that one, is fucking chunky. Look how big this is. It's, what is it? It's over 500 pages, but I'm sure you can guess if you've ever seen Black Flamingo, Dean Atta's little book. It is written in verse, so it's not like crazy chunky. But this one follows, what's his name, Mac. So it follows Mac, and at first he's crushing on this guy Kay, and then they get together, and then it's sort of them two being together. Then he moves to Scotland with his dad for reasons for a few months, and meets this other guy Finley, this trans guy who his dad's making a film on, and then he has feelings for him, but he's still going out of Kay and he doesn't know what to do, and there's a lot of messiness. It's very messy. And it feels like I've just told you the whole story, but it tells you that whole thing. It tells you he's with this guy and then he goes to Scotland and then there's this other guy. So, straight out of the bat, that's what it's about. So if you don't want to read about somebody like emotionally cheating on their boyfriend, it's probably not for you. For me personally, I thought it was alright. I did think it was too long. I don't think it needed to be 500 pages. On the other hand, I think it finished way too quickly and nothing got resolved, and that annoyed me. I thought it was fine. I didn't dislike the characters. Mac's 15, he's emotional, he's messy. I'm not going to hate him for not knowing how to behave and not knowing how to act and thinking things, and you know, it's fine. Other people probably will not agree. They'll probably, the first time they saw that he likes this Finley, some people might be like, no, I hate this book, cheating's cheating, go away. I was fine with that. What I wasn't fine with is I do think that, like I said, stuff didn't get resolved in the way I wanted it to. Not even necessarily in a romantic way either, but there's also a friendship in here, and I hate the way that the book ended with how the friendship went. That annoyed me. I felt like I disliked Mac in that sense, because I think that, yeah, obviously I don't want to spoil anything, but I don't think it went in the right way. I think the book ended too quickly after the fallout of stuff getting exposed. So yeah, and also there's this sort of slightly there story about Mac and his dad. So his dad is this big time director, and Mac is well off, but he feels lonely. So he has his best friends and they're always around at his house, but he never sees his dad. And then there's that whole, you know, they see it as, yeah, but it's cool because you get to just hang out in this cool place that has a cinema and, you know, all the food and stuff. But they don't see the other side where it's, he wants to see his dad and he wants his dad to be in his life and he wants his dad to care about what he's doing. And then there's this little sort of thread going through about him wanting to know more about his mum, because his mum died when he was younger. And I do feel like they could have done more with that as well. It went sort of a little bit there towards the end of the book, but I feel like that bit could have been dived into more, and then it wouldn't have felt like this chunky book was so chunky, because I do feel like some of the threads that were the most interesting weren't delved into enough, and there was enough time. It was over 500 pages long. So yes, those are my feelings. It was fine. It was middle of the road. Moving on. After that, I reread Lightfall Volume 1, which is The Girl and the Goldrian, and then I read Lightfall Volume 2, which is Shadow of the Bird, both by Tim Probert. This, I think, if you were here last year, which is when I read this first, you will know that it's absolutely stunning. It's just this really lovely story. It's middle grade, it's an adventure. These two characters going on an adventure trying to find her granddad, and it's magical and fantastical, and the art is superb. Let me just show you. It's just so cute. There's also the most catting cat I've ever catting seen in any sort of novel or comic or anything. Literally, you'll be reading the panels and then you have to look again because Nim's just being a cat in the background, and I adore it. So yes, the first book, I gave it 5 stars when I read it last year, and I still very much enjoy it. And then the second book, stuff happens in this. Stuff kicks off, and the ending, it's like cliffhanger galore. So I definitely want to find out what happens next. And it's just as fun, and there's other characters. There's characters we meet in the first one that we get to see more of, and they're adorable and fun and silly and whimsical, and it's just really good. And let me just show you a bit about a cat again, without spoiling anything, hopefully. But look at how wonderful this is. She's all anxious, and then the anxiousness drains off because the cat, and it's just so true. If you cuddle a cat, they make you feel better, and that's facts and that's science. So yes, very much enjoyed both of these, and looking forward to the next one. I don't know when it's out, but I need it because stuff happened. We're about halfway through, so let's head on over to Message to the Spons, and then I shall be back with the rest of the books. Good boy. Hello, lovely. You want some more ham? You're so spoiled, you are. Next up, I finally read Noah Goes Nuclear by Simon James Green. This is a little novella short that takes place after Noah Can't Even and before Noah Could Never, I believe. And it's like 35 pages long. I've had it for ages. You get it if you sign up to his email address. And I've had it for ages, and I finally read it because of the Because You Can Readathon. Because, I've said because too many times, because one of the prompts was reading something that's been on your TBR for ages, and another one was reading a different format. So I was like, ebook that I've been wanting to read for ages, this one very much. And it was great. It was amazing. It was 35 pages. It genuinely made me laugh out loud, which only Simon James Green seems to be able to do, and manages to do in 35 pages of silliness. It's just a silly little story about a trip that they're going on, and then they're in the hotel and everyone's just being silly and stuff's happening and embarrassment and fun times. And yeah, it made me laugh. It was really good. And what more can I say? It was 35 pages. It was just silliness in the best possible way. After that, I read A Little Bit Country by Brian D. Kennedy. This one is about two people, so it's alternate perspectives. What are their names? I'm really bad with names. Emmett and Luke, that is true. Emmett and Luke were the people in this book. So yeah, it follows both of these characters. Emmett wants to be a country star. He wants to write his own music and do the songs and play the guitar and be famous. Luke, on the other hand, is not a fan of country. He hates it. There are reasons which are not gone into on the back, so I won't tell you because spoilers, but he's just not a fan of country at all. And then they both somehow end up working at this place. It's not called Dollywood, that's the real one it's based on. It's called Wonder World. It's like a fictional Dollyland, Dolly World. It's like that Dolly Parton place, but for Wanda, who is a fictional country star in this book. And they're both working there, one in the restaurant, one in the theatre-y musical type bit. They sort of meet, they sort of get along, and yeah, it goes from there. So it's about music and country. It's also very much about family, so both of them have very different family dynamics. Emmett is out and proud. He's moved over to stay with his aunt for a few months because he wants to work at this Wonder World, get his foot in the door of the country. His parents are back home, very loving, very open, very happy for him, very overbearing, but in a fun way. And then Luke, on the other hand, he has quite a lot of stress on his shoulders because his mum is ill. Side note, this is the first time I think I've seen multiple sclerosis in a book, because I was reading it and I got his chapter and he was talking about his mum being ill. I was like, oh my god, I bet she's got cancer, because for some reason every book about, every YA book has a mum with cancer, and I don't know why. But then it didn't, which is fun, but also not fun because she's still ill, but it's something a bit different. But anyway, yeah, his mum has MS and she's having a bad time of it at the minute, and because of that she can't work, and his stepdad is out working loads. Luke himself wants to be out there working all the hours in the world because he wants to be able to be stable and help out the family. He has two younger siblings as well, so he has a lot of weight on his shoulders. Even though his parents haven't told him he has to do it, he feels like he has to step up and provide for his family because they're in debt and they need money. So I enjoyed the fact that we have these different family dynamics in here. I did think the relationship was lacking a bit. It didn't feel like they liked each other that much. They definitely liked each other. Oh, I didn't mention, and Luke is conservatively not wanting anybody to know he's gay because he's like, my family's already dealing with this stuff, I don't want them dealing with this stuff as well. So yeah, I just didn't feel like I felt the connection as much as I could have. Like, these two are meant to be really in love. I didn't feel like there was much connection. They didn't really have many deep talks. It didn't even feel like there was lust. They just felt like, yeah, they kind of hung out together in secret, but then it was, they liked each other, but I didn't feel like the like came across as much as it could have done. So that's one aspect that I think could have been done better in here. The romance could have been more believable, more romantic, more feelings involved. But either way, I enjoyed the book. There was a little bit of like a sort of mystery involved as well, which I can't really say anything about because it links with stuff that you don't know yet because you haven't read it. But yeah, I liked it anyway. Moving on. After that, I finally read King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. This is the first book in the duology, King of Scars duology, because Leigh Bardugo is like, why should I ever make titles for my series? You got the Shadow and Bone trilogy, you've got the Six of Crows duology, you got the King of Scars duology. Simple. Anyway, I've been putting this off, but not really, but a little bit, kind of a smidge, because I heard very mixed things. I can't remember actually hearing anything that anyone said, but I just remember the vibe being very with this book, so I went in like I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. I thought it was incredible, amazing, brilliant. Nikolai, I love him. I don't know why people don't like it. I looked at Goodreads and the reviews were like, oh, it's really slow and boring. What? No, it isn't. Loads of stuff happens. It's really good. And yes, I very enjoyed it much. I need to read the second book now. But it was really good. I very much enjoyed it. I think the writing style is better. You can tell that Lee Bardugo has just grown as a writer. It's just better written. The characters were enjoyable. With Shadow and Bone, I've not been silent in my meh thoughts of that series. I know loads of people absolutely love that, and maybe going into this because it's, I don't know, chunker, slightly more adult than Shadow and Bone. Maybe people think or feel like it's slower paced because, I don't know, it's written more adult, perhaps. Shadow and Bone were very easy to read, very quick to get through, very average in my opinion. So I don't know why people don't like this, but I did. I very much did. I really enjoyed it. I liked everybody's different point of view because we do follow so many different characters, and a lot of the time when there's multiple characters, there'll be maybe one where you're like, nah, read it a bit quicker, get to the good bits. But every single one in here, I very much enjoyed their storyline, where it was going, what was happening. I never felt like I flicked a page of someone and was like, oh, I have to read this one before I get to a good one. I just enjoyed all of the story, and I'm very much enjoying and looking forward to seeing where it's going next. The ending, I don't know how I feel about that though, because of reasons, but we shall see when I finally read the next book. But yes, very much a fan of this one. I enjoyed it. I shouldn't have put it off for so long. It was good. And then finally, the last book that I read in June was Erebus, The Story of a Ship by Michael Palin. This is a non-fiction book about the ship Erebus. So it goes from the creation of the ship, and then for a few years when it was meandering through the Mediterranean, and it was just left for a bit. And then finally, some people picked it up for polar expeditions. Obviously, that's where I come in, polar, you know? So because it's about the beginning bit as well, I did feel like the first maybe a third of this book was really slow, and I was like, I don't care. It was quite hard to get through. But when we finally did get to the polar stuff, I thought it was really interesting because this was a ship expeditions that I didn't really know much about. So my expertise is like 50 years after this, when everybody else gets involved, like the more famous ones. Whereas with Erebus and Terror, I knew of it. I know what both of the ships sunk, but I didn't know actually about the expeditions. So there were 2 expeditions. One of them succeeded, and then like a year or 2 later the ship was sent out again. Well, both of the ships, as Erebus and Terror, that were like twin ships, and then those ones got lost and everybody died. So it was really interesting to read about that and how they figured out what happened to them. Like, there were loads of different expeditions trying to find them for like 10 years. Loads of different ships went out and they just couldn't find them. And then eventually some people had to talk to some natives that lived around there, and they said, oh yeah, this ship and these white men like 10 years ago were over there and they all looked like they were dying. And then they had to follow what they said, and then they managed to find the wrecks and find some bones and stuff and try and figure out what happened. So yes, it was really interesting after the first third, so I'm glad I pushed through. And there were some really cool pictures as well and little images. My favourite bit is at the end of one of the last, near to the end of the chapters, just because I'm a stan of the Norwegians, but it's on about there being a memorial for Franklin, who was one of the guys that did this, and a memorial of Captain Scott, and both of them failed. And then it says, the man who beat Scott to the pole was Roald Amundsen. The first man to cross the Northwest Passage by sea was Roald Amundsen. He has no memorial in London. I just thought that was funny, how both of these people died and then Roald Amundsen beat what they wanted to do. That's kind of not funny, but I liked the way it was put. It was like, yeah, England is like, oh, these polar expedition people, give them statues and that, and they both died and didn't complete their goals. And then I just think it's funny how Roald Amundsen beat both of them to each of their goals. But anyway, beside that, I'm glad I got around to reading this. It was a book off my 2022 TBR, which is good. Still working my way through those, still at a good level of read to unread books. And that was the end of what I read in June. So yeah, let me know down below what you read in June. If you read any of these, what are your thoughts? Let me know down below. And if this is your first video by me, you enjoy it, then please check out some of my others. And if you continue to enjoy, then please subscribe, that'd be awesome. Anyway guys, I'll see you in a few days with another video.